You're a man of few words, but your track record speaks volumes. There's no exaggeration here. Hundreds of pro cards, hundreds of national qualifications. Your IG handle is the_pro_deucer, right? And you've guided athletes not only to prestigious shows like the Arnold and the Olympia, but you've helped athletes walk away with Olympia titles in bikini, fitness, and figure. What does it require as a coach in order to achieve such accolades, and how do you not get burned out?
Well,
I know, fully loaded question.
I mean, I think to be successful in the sport, you have to have an ego. But at the same time, you also have to keep your ego in check. I think the biggest issue we run into as trainers is we tend to start believing our own bullshit. We start believing all the hype. So I think, in order to achieve that ultimate success, you need to keep your ego in check. Make sure you keep your athletes first. Don't make it about you as a coach. Make sure you do whatever you can to help your athletes be properly prepared. Honestly, as a coach, just like an athlete, you have to sacrifice a lot. You know what I mean? To try to get to that top position per year, you're sacrificing everything. Just, not so much like an athlete. You're not doing the physical work per se, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, if you believe in that, your job as a coach is to try to absorb all that bad negative energy that an athlete might be going through and try to flip it into something positive for them to feed off of. So, it's tough. Kind of goes into the whole, how do you not get burnt out? And honestly, I don't think you can avoid it. You look at all the great champions, basketball, hockey, football, it doesn't matter. You push yourself to the brink, as an athlete, and then you should do the same as a coach, I think a lot of coaches are keyboard guys. They're really good on the keyboards, you know what I mean? They think they've done this great thing for their athlete and talking about what we've done. And technically, as coaches, most coaches probably won't like this, but it's something I've always preached. As coaches, we don't do a whole lot, physical work, you know what I mean? Yeah, unless you're kind of lucky enough to have an athlete local to where you can one-on-one with them every day, but even then, you're spending, an hour, 2 hours a day tops? The athlete's spending 24 hours a day trying to do everything that they need to be ready. So you're gonna get burnt out mentally. You're definitely gonna get fatigued because you're always processing. You're always trying to figure out ways you can help your athlete be better. How can I help take something off of the plate of one of my athletes to help them not stress as much? So, I think at the end of the year, you try to do the best you can to check out for a couple of weeks. Kind of maybe go on a trip with some family or loved ones, and just try to reset. But our season in the IFBB Pro League is getting longer and shorter. It's going all the way to mid-December now, and it's starting in February. So, and then if you have Arnold athletes, it's already starting in December. So you don't really get a break. But in the end, if you love what you do, if you're competitive as a coach, it doesn't matter. You just do the damn work,
Fair. So what is the most difficult part of coaching, and what's the most rewarding?
I'll start with the rewarding. For me, it's a little different. With the people that know me and know me well, I have a hard time celebrating the success of my athletes and the success of myself, because I look at it like, you won. Awesome. Well, guess what? You're going to have to do it again. So, I could be in the audience at the Olympia, and instantly, as soon as one of my athletes win, I usually take a deep breath. I kind of breathe. I get up and I walk out. And as soon as I walk out, that's it. It's over for me. Everybody's looking to be super excited. Hey, we did it. And, I do my best to try to show that emotion. But for me, it's I won. Done. Next. Let's move on. And so that's just how I process things. So I don't celebrate a lot, to be honest. I'm extremely grateful for everything that has transpired so far in my athletes' careers and my career. But celebrating to me is kind of, for me as a coach and how my brain works, it's kind of okay, I'm done. I'm celebrating, I retired. And no, because in our sport, after the Olympia, you have 4 pro shows. Well, if I don't produce that next weekend, am I going to keep living off accolades of last week, last month, last year? And a lot of coaches tend to do that. They talk about all the stuff they've done in the past. You're not relevant if you're not doing it every weekend, every month, every national show, every pro show. So for me, it's like I don't have time to celebrate. And then I think that ties into what's the hardest part, as being a coach, is you're always, in my mind, putting pressure on myself to perform and produce. So if I can't produce on a weekly basis, I'm not very good at my job. Some coaches kind of ride one athlete's tail. They ride their coattails their whole career, and it's like, awesome. You had one person that did really well. It doesn't make you a great coach. It made you a great coach for that one person. Unless you can replicate that with multiple people, multiple bikini pros, multiple figure pros, multiple fitness athletes, then are you really that great of a coach, or are you just really good with that one person because you know that athlete very well? So for me, it's always trying to be better than your last season is probably the hardest part there, as a coach, like from my perspective. That doesn't apply to everybody because not everyone thinks like me.
Right. And there's a lot of correlation there because both of us are big fans of Tim Grover, and one of his quotes that he talks about is not riding the highs too high or the lows too low. And I feel like everything you said there is a perfect example, which is one of the many reasons why I specifically was like, yes, I want you to coach me for the rest of my career, because having a coach with that mindset, it helps the athlete as well. Because we can't just hang our hat on every single win, because as you know, we don't win every show. So it can be very difficult, and some people might want that rah-rah coach. But at the end of the day, I would rather keep it 100 and have zero fluff. So with that being said, I want you to finish this statement. It drives me nuts when competitors...
I think, probably too many things. This is like a 24-hour live stream. Probably just when they bitch and moan about placement, you know what I mean, at shows. And they don't understand sometimes, hey, last week I was third, this week I was seventh. You also were in a different lineup with a different group of athletes. So everything in our sport does this, and you have to be able to, as an athlete's mentality, you have to be able to do the same thing. You have to be able to ride that wave and look at yourself subjectively and figure out whether there's something that was different at this show compared to the last show that allowed you to place higher previously. So my biggest frustration is when athletes don't look at themselves enough, like from a far enough distance. They always see all these things and they don't understand why they didn't place where they placed, but they don't really break their physique down enough, or the competitors they were standing next to. And so they get really frustrated and they tend to go on social media and complain, and what's the point? Yeah, you're going to have your sheep that are sitting there, listening to you and following you, but just because people agree with you doesn't mean it's right. So our sport is subjective. It's similar to swimming or gymnastics or even boxing. If you look at all those sports, you'll have one person do the exact same dive with the same amount of difficulty and be scored differently than the other person, just because they looked a little better doing it. And that's part of our sport, is looking good while you're performing on stage. So, yeah.
That's very true. So, what do competitors struggle with the most, and how do you help them through it?
I would say probably just the word balance. You know what I mean? People have a hard time and like to quote, I'm trying to find balance. And in the end, if you want to be the best you can, you're not going to have a whole lot of balance. You know what I mean? And if you want as much of that as possible, then you need to do your due diligence and you need to figure out time management. You know what I mean? If you look at somebody like Sydney Gillian, she's probably one of the best athletes I've dealt with when it comes to that. Breena's probably a close second because she's kind of learned that it creates a lot of anxiety, and it's really hard to manage everything that you're responsible for as an adult if you don't figure out your time management skills. So for me, I try to do what I can to help lay that process out. Obviously, if you have family, the family needs to come first. If you have a job, obviously you have to support yourself. That comes second. And then everything else is a close third, to competing. You have to figure out a way to make them all work. And if that means you have to get up a little earlier, get up earlier. If I have to open the gym 30 minutes earlier to allow my athletes to come in, then that's what I do. But I try to do what I can to help them lay out their days if they need that, so they can understand, like, look, I have people like Whitney Jones, who runs 90% of our business, you know, is a mom of two, does fitness, which is the hardest division because you're responsible for so many different aspects, and still gets shit done on a daily basis. Now, does she run herself into the ground? Of course she does. But she has no choice if she wants to be the top of her sport, which she is, and she'll continue to be. She has no choice. So, you know, look at some people that have done it. Don't give me excuses and say, oh, I have 2 kids at home, you know?
Right.
We have a trainer here that has 6 kids, and she competed. And she competed and earned her pro card, and she still got it done. You know what I mean? Her husband works full-time, she works full-time. So it can be done. You just have to stop making excuses and learn how to really lay out your day. Maybe sit down with your family and let them, you know, hey, this is my goal. You know, I'm a mom. I've spent, 10 years raising you kids and 15 years dedicated to my husband. I want, 16 weeks to myself. So this is what I need from you guys, and this is what I can do, and lay it out, as a family. So I try to do as much as I can to give tips and recommendations, because I learn from athletes.
Right.
I learned from Sid, you, Whitney, Renee, Alex, Debbie, whoever I've worked with over the years. I've learned, okay, that's a good idea. So I kind of try to give as much info as I can.
Yeah. I have to say, and I think that's one of the things that really drew me to moving from the Bay Area to coming out here to Arizona was seeing that how being around like-minded individuals and everyone that has a lot on their plate still gets it done. And, the reference that you made to Whitney Jones, that's one of the reasons, why, almost 2 years ago now, when I came to you both, because they were mentors to me. They're doing things that I wanted to do in the future, and I'm still, baby Breena, trying to work my way through that. And so being able to learn from other people, I mean, that's really what it's about. You can't stay in your same pond. They're always going to give you those compliments. You got to get out there. So I can definitely appreciate that. As a coach, do you set specific goals for yourself every year? If so, what are they?
It's just black and white, and be better than it was the year before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whether that's pro cards, whether that's pro wins, whether that's Olympia titles, just finding a way to be better. And then also for myself, finding a way to communicate with my athletes better. Most of the people who've dealt with me know I'm kind of a hard person to deal with sometimes. I'm very black and white. I don't do a lot of rah-rah. So I try to learn from other coaches in the building and see what they do and see the response their athletes, give them. And I go, okay, maybe I should try to come. I've learned over the years, I guess, to try to find ways to grow as a person more than just a coach, and figure out different ways to communicate with people, and realizing not everybody responds the same way, even though in my mind I would like them to. They just don't.
Right.
So each year I try to work on something when it comes to my own personality, I would try to say.
I like that. And that goes back to your original answer of, in order to be a successful coach, you have to have no ego.
For sure.
And that's part of it, being able to recognize what your athletes need and seeing whether you can or can't give that to them, but finding the right resources for them.
Yeah, just listening to your athletes. A lot of athletes come to coaches and they've already had a very successful career. So they already know what the hell they're doing. So listen to your athlete. Don't think just because they come to them, you have to have an absolutely, this is the absolute way you have to do this. No, listen to let your ego sit back a little bit, listen to your athlete, see what's worked for them in the past, and then find a way to kind of blend the two concepts. Maybe you have a few tweaks you would like to do to help them be better, but understanding that your athlete, hey, they've been successful, they know how to get there. So, that's another thing I try to work on, is try to be more open-minded to listening and understanding that there isn't just one way to do what we do in our sport.
You've been doing this for a very long time. We won't go into how long. But if you could go back to your old self when you first started coaching, what would you tell yourself to prepare you for what's ahead? If this is before the titles, before all the qualifications, before all the success, what would you have told yourself?
I thought, honest, I'll be very, very honest. Just don't allow yourself to believe your own bullshit, and don't allow yourself to get high on that power that you're given. As coaches, we have a lot of people that look up to us, and myself included, and other coaches. We tend to sometimes take advantage of it. I've made many mistakes in my life and in my career. I own up to them. I'm not necessarily proud of them. But I think when we first start coaching, we have all these people looking up to us like, you're the greatest and you're the best. And they listen to everything that you say as like it's the Bible, you know?
Yeah.
So you have to be careful, especially as a male coach, not to allow yourself to use that power incorrectly. Not to lead people down a path of just being you know how to be a good human, and keep that. Understand that at the end of the day, we're all people just trying to do the same thing. So for me, I would tell myself just, hey, like, slow down. Don't start believing don't get hype on everyone's, smoke they're blowing up your ass. You know what I mean? It's like, just don't. Like, learn to just understand that this is a process that takes time. I never had a problem with being patient, but I did have a problem with not understanding how to use that power properly. It's like, you look at, presidents, won't name names, but they get in office and all of a sudden they're doing all these things that people know are wrong, but they're allowing it because they're the president of the United States. It's the same thing with coaches. So I would tell myself that. I see it a lot in the sport with young coaches coming up. Luckily for me, most of that fell back years ago when I first started, but that's about as real as I can get. It's just understanding that you're going to be given probably a lot of power from a lot of different people, and just don't abuse it.
Damian, you travel a ton. I mean, I don't know how many frequent flyer miles you've obtained, but you have athletes all over the world, which means you have to cater to different time zones. Is there such thing as balance for you? I know we talked a little bit about for the athlete, but is there such thing as balance for you? And do you make time for yourself and your health and fitness?
I don't. I need to. I am getting older, and at some point, you know what I mean, I'm going to pay the piper, and it's going to hit me. We've had a lot of coaches recently pass away. I think a lot of them are just because they're driving themselves later in the night and getting up earlier and earlier. So it's important. It's important for coaches to keep themselves healthy. I try to do the best I can. I don't drink. You know what I mean. I try to lift when I can. I try to eat. Sometimes okay.
You got a nasty sweet tooth.
I do. I cope with stress by food. So I don't drink. So I do it with food. No, I don't really have balance, and unfortunately, it's caused me to lose a lot of people in my life. Just because I'm always going to sacrifice everything for the sport and for my athletes. So I don't really have balance like I should. I think as you get older, you try to find it and you try to enjoy more opportunities like post-show, hanging out with athletes or different coaches and trying to maybe make the weekends a little more enjoyable so they're not just about winning, because obviously we don't win every weekend. So, yeah, I don't really have it.
And I'm good with that, because I would hate it if you were to, I mean, again, this is just an open-ended, honest interview to give you guys information, and myself included, because again, he's my mentor, so of course I'm taking notes and trying to learn. I got one last question for you.
Okay.
What advice would you give to coaches like myself that are trying to follow in your footsteps?
Go back to the whole thing about your ego. I got a little saying, that I've always told people is, don't get high off of the smoke that people are blowing up your ass. You know what I mean? So it's just keep your ego in check. You know what I mean? Keep your ego in check and understand this is a process. You're not going to be an overnight success. And even if you are, what are you doing to your athletes that are allowing you to become an overnight success? You have to understand that these athletes have lives after the sport. So make sure you take care of their health. Number one, that's your priority, especially as a female coach. Coaching female athletes, health is always going to be number one. Yes, our sport's a little bit extreme and we push ourselves to limits, but at the same time, understand that these people have lives post-competing and you're responsible for that. So I try to preach that to people and understanding that you can be very successful in the sport, but at the end of the day, if you don't have your health when you're done with it, then what was the point? So, take your time as a coach, learn as much as you can. Expect a lot from your athletes, demand a lot from your athletes as long as you're giving that equal amount, and just keep your ego in check. At the end of the day, for all coaches, the ego is kind of our Achilles heel. That's what kind of can tear us down as coaches and also help us succeed. So you have to learn how to use it in a good way.
And that wraps up our interview with Damian Segovia, Pro Physique's
you.